Hello and welcome to the local campaign. I'm Gord Markno from City News. On October 19th, Canada will elect the 42nd Parliament, and Rogers TV is the only station producing debates of all of Toronto's 25 ridings. For the next hour, you're going to hear from the candidates of Don Valley North. 2015 marks the beginning of an electoral riding redistribution, so that boundaries in the majority of ridings have changed along with some of the riding names. So before I introduce the candidates, let's take a closer look at the newly redrawn riding of Don Valley North.
The riding of Don Valley North was first used in the federal election of 1988. It was abolished in 1996 through redistribution, but it returns in 2015. The riding stretches from the Toronto-York region border on the north to Highway 401 to the south. Bayview Avenue is the western edge, and Victoria Park Avenue is the eastern limit. Neighborhoods within this riding include Don Valley Village, Bayview Village, and Hillcrest Village. Seneca College's Newnham Campus, North York General Hospital, and Fairview Mall are all located in this riding.
Now I'll give each candidate 1 minute to make an opening statement. This will be done in the order of the most seats by party in the House of Commons, and therefore we will begin with Akil Sadikali. Akil.
Hi, my name is Akil Sadikali, and I am running as the NDP candidate in the riding of Don Valley North. I was born and raised in Don Valley North. I attended local French immersion schools in the community. I participated in our recreation facilities. I enjoyed our parks and recreation facilities within the community. I've been in the riding for over almost 40 years, and I've seen this area grow and prosper. Because of my strong ties to the community, if elected, I will do everything I can to represent your interests in Parliament. I have both an undergraduate and a master's degree in computer science. I graduated from the University of Toronto, and then I continued my studies at the University of Calgary. In the past, I've worked at a number of companies. I started my career at Nortel Networks as a software developer. I continued to do some health research at the University Health Network, and then I did some hedge fund analysis at Scotiabank. Currently, I work for a small startup company in downtown Toronto. I know the realities of working for both the public and private sector, and within large and small corporations. My varied experience in both finance, healthcare, and technology will give me a unique opportunity to represent a balanced approach when I'm representing your needs in Parliament. On October 19th, I hope you'll support me as your NDP candidate in Parliament.
Next is Geng Tan of the Liberal Party.
Hi, my name is Geng Tan. I'm the Liberal candidate for the Don Valley North. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party have the right plan to invest in our people and build the infrastructure and the transit that we need, create more jobs, and grow our economy. We also have the right plan to bring the fairness to the middle class and anyone working hard to join that. We're going to cut the taxes for the middle class and ask the richest 1% to pay their fair share. And we're going to create the Canada Child Benefit. We also have the right plan to invest in green infrastructure and build more affordable housing for seniors, and
That's okay.
Build more affordable housing for seniors, and shoot, sorry, I have to forget the word now. And revitalize the insurance, revitalize the employment insurance so that it works for Canadians. But the main reason that we have the right plan is because we have right values, the Canadian values and the liberal values, the values of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and the values of hope and fairness. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. We should mention that Joe Daniel, the Conservative candidate, had been scheduled to appear, but he has canceled at the last minute. Let's talk transit. Every community in this country relies heavily on public transit, none more so than Toronto. You all know the issues if you've lived here. So with, Toronto is the least subsidized public transit system in North America, in desperate need of constant funding, always with a budget shortfall. How would you improve public transit in Toronto, Akil?
Well, Gord, the NDP has a solid plan to invest long-term funding within our transit system. We will provide 20 years of funding at $1.3 billion a year. And that'll go a significant way to alleviate some of the transit issues within our riding. And specifically for the GTA, we're going to subsidize, we're going to send $90 million to the municipalities just for the GTA to alleviate some of the costs in transit. It's interesting to note that we built the Shepherd subway line within our riding. It runs entirely almost in our riding, but it's only 5.5 kilometers long, and it competes with the 401, which is going east and west and has 16 lanes of highway. When the 401 is bogged down, it's our riding that is impacted extremely negatively. Cars use Shepherd, and all the traffic is congested when the 401 has a problem. We have to have an alternative. We need to have stable funding. We need to start building the transit for the future.
Geng?
Yes. Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party will invest additional $20 billion on the transit over the next 10 years to build more roads and the bridges for the physical infrastructure. And we know the traffic congestion is a big issue and for us. But in GTA, it costs $11 billion almost every year because of the congestion. So right now there's no affordable or sustainable or a possible alternative way to move people around. So most people have to drive their car, and that causes the big problem on the road. And you feel that's a big pollution. There's a big cost. There's a big cost for the economy and the people. What about the people in the cars? They are under the stress. They're stressful. So this is something that we have to address, and we're going to make a change. And the Liberal Party will, work with the province and the municipalities to come up with the best solution.
So the Liberal leader has announced, budgetary measures for public transit across the country, but we are 10 provinces. So really, when you divide it up, it's not that much money.
Yes, but the bigger portion of the money will come to the big cities. Right now, 80% of the population are living in urban areas. And after 10 years from now, I would say probably more than 90% of people will live in the urban areas. So I would say big portion of the infrastructure investment will go to the big cities.
Akil, the transit situation here is abysmal. You've had politician after politician, year after year, just punting the issue down the road, saying, let the next guy figure it out. How can we be sure that your leader will enact the changes that are necessary?
It's a very good question, because it's true. I mean, if we look at the expansion, like I said, the Shepherd line was built 5.5 kilometers, and that was the last large subway infrastructure that we built in the city. And previous governments have failed. The Conservatives haven't done very much. They've got a lot of money sitting in the bank, but municipalities can't access that money because of all the application processes. And the Liberals, their history is actually even worse, because when we had surpluses and we had the money to invest in transit, we just didn't do it. Now it's very interesting that Justin Trudeau is talking about going to deficit and spending money, borrowing money to build transit. When we had the funds to build it, we just didn't do it. Tom Mulcair has come to Toronto, has made specific commitments to Toronto to say that we will build this transportation network that we need. We have to expand our subway network. We have to have transportation that meets the 21st century, not just the 20th century.
So your two leaders, Geng, are at odds when it comes to deficit financing. Justin Trudeau believes that there should be a deficit for the first 4 years in order to get infrastructure built. The NDP, however, agrees with the Conservatives that there should be a balanced budget right off the top. Absolutely. How do you get a balanced budget, Akil, and at the same time improve your infrastructure programs? Where does the money come from?
Well, we've identified a few tax increases, mainly in the corporate sector. We plan to increase corporate taxes to still below the OECD levels, but just about 2%, so that we can fund the necessary investments. We'll also take away the tax loopholes that CEOs have when they get their stock bonuses. So there are a number of initiatives that we can take to close the budget gap. we're also going to remove the income splitting that the Conservatives have introduced, where their own finance minister said that this was a bad idea, that it only benefits 15% of the population, the wealthiest 15%. So there are measures that we can take to balance the budget, but also invest in the necessary transportation and social infrastructure that we desperately need in this country.
And so the Liberals believe that they should have deficit financing, but we've been warned time after time that we're carrying way too much debt. So how do you justify that?
That's a good question. Yes, we're going to run a small deficit over a few years to balance before we can balance the budget, because that's the money needed to boost our economy. Right now, our economy is very low. As you just mentioned, we have to invest big money into the infrastructure. So we have to run a few deficits. And this is why I said the Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party are honest and responsible to Canadians. And we need the money to boost the economy.
I think, Geng, if you were being honest, why not raise taxes on the corporations, raise the funds you need to build the infrastructure we need today? I mean, Paul Martin in the 1990s came out and said, by hell or high water, we're going to balance the budgets. And we were in much worse position than we are today. If you have a priority, raise the taxes, spend the money prudently and responsibly so that we have stable funding for the future. We don't need to burden our next generation with debt. We've gone down that route. You know, Mulroney and the Liberal Party before that raised our debt to beyond sustainable levels. We were ridiculed in the press. We cannot go down that route again. The NDP has a solid plan to continue to invest in social spending, but be responsible in the financial aspect.
Raising the corporate tax is not a good idea. It doesn't do much to help the economy, because right now we need the business in Canada. We have to, once they are in, we have to attract them. We have to keep them in Canada, create more jobs to boost the economy. So it's not a good idea. But at the same time, what we can do, the Liberal Party, is encourage the big companies to get the tax break by hiring more people and training more people. So the people will get better skills. Whenever they go to the job market, there will be more chance for them to find other well-paying jobs.
But you just mentioned that raising corporate taxes is a bad idea because it will drive business away. I mean, I worked at the bank. When the banks got these tax cuts, they didn't add more jobs. In fact, they cut the number of positions that they had at tellers and bank branches. There is no scientific evidence that shows that cutting taxes means better jobs in Canada.
Exactly, this is what we're going to do. Because there are problems in our current tax code. So that current code actually encourages big companies to cut their workforce and cut the expenses.
So why is it that
people. What we are going to do is we'll revise the code and make it better for the employees to get more chance.
Let's talk about employment for a second. In 1980, 26% of young people were living at home with mom and dad while working. Now that number is 42%. And the future does not look bright for the young people of this country. They can't find jobs, and when they do, those jobs are part-time or they're internships. They don't get benefits for the places where they work, and their positions are very insecure. What will you do to change that picture and put Canadian young people to work?
Well, we've been very clear about our internship program. We'll give employees incentives to hire young Canadians, hire them, not go on unpaid internships, to get a foot in the door in the corporate world. It's very important that you get a good job at the beginning of your career so that you can actually progress. We've been doing this. The youth unemployment problem has been there for many governments, and no one has tackled this issue. And our economy is constantly retracting, and businesses are leaving. We have to invest in the economy. That's very important.
Yes, by investing in the infrastructure, we create much more jobs. And at the same time, the Liberal Party has already proposed to invest $1.3 billion over the next 4 years on the youth employment. So by doing so, we can help the provincial government and the municipality to create 40,000 new jobs, new internship and co-op jobs for the young people.
One only need to look at housing prices in Toronto and Vancouver as examples of how ridiculous the housing situation here in Canada is, how ridiculously expensive it is. So you have exacerbating the problem of homelessness, What will you do to combat homelessness and provide affordable housing?
Well, Gord, previous governments have cut our affordable housing budgets. It's been cut by 46%. We're the only OECD country that does not have a national housing strategy. We have 35,000 Canadians on any night using a shelter bed. It's a terrible situation. We have to address the housing issue. Thomas Mulcair has indicated that we will enact legislation that makes housing a right, and that will enable us to work with the provinces to come up with a housing strategy that will make sure that everyone has a place to go home at night.
The housing system under the current government is not working. So this is why Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party will invest $20 billion additional money on the social infrastructure, so we can build more affordable housing, not just for seniors, also for other ordinary Canadian and middle-class people.
There are polls indicating that many Canadians believe that there will be a minority government elected on October 19th. If that is the case, there may be a coalition situation, or at least there would have to be, in order to keep Parliament running. Where's the NDP stand on this coalition?
Well, we would work with all parties to make sure that Parliament works. What is unfortunate is that every time this talk of coalition or partnering or whatever else comes up, it's Justin Trudeau that constantly tells us that he can't work with the NDP, or that Tom Mulcair isn't a good leader, or brings out negative sentiments towards coalition building. It's part of our British parliamentary system that we build coalitions and we move Parliament forward. So the NDP will definitely work with other parties.
Liberal Party has its values. We stand on our values. So if there's a Liberal minority government, we're going to work with other parties to make things moving forward. And to address your question, if there's an NDP government, I guess we are going to work with other parties to make the Parliament work.
Let's talk immigration for a second. We are a leading country when it comes to immigration in the world, but now we're making it tougher for immigrants to come to Canada. Where does your party stand on, for example, the Syrian situation, where we are asked or being asked to be more compassionate and accept more refugees?
I think it's really unfortunate what's happened in the Syrian situation, because we've politicized a very tragic situation. You have millions of refugees who are fleeing a war situation in Syria, and rather than opening our doors as we have done in the past, we're using them as a political pawn and forwarding a situation of fear into the public. Our party has been very clear. We would accept the United Nations mandate of accepting 9,000 people per year, and immediately accept 10,000 people by the end of this year.
Canada is famous and has very good reputation in the world for its generosity and warm heart. And Canada is a country of immigration. So there are many immigrants coming to Canada from all over the world to build this country. And for the refugee, it's the same. We are Canadian. We have very good life. It's our responsibility to help those people that are in need. This is our traditional value. So we're going to help other people.
If I could just say something, Gord, I think our immigration system has really broken. When my father came to Canada in 1972, there were immigration officers that were posted overseas that would encourage people to come to Canada and to invest in the country. And today, our immigration policy is almost a closed-door system where you have to apply and you have to show that you will be a valuable citizen to Canada. Most people who come here want to work, they want to contribute positively to the country. And the way the system works now, both under the Liberal and Conservative governments, is to reduce immigration levels and to make it tougher for people like my father who came to immigrate. And I don't think that this is of benefit to the country.
This information is not totally correct. Myself, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I came to Canada with basically nothing in my pocket. And with the support from the government, I can stay here. I can become a citizen. I can finish my doctorate degree from UFT. So that was under the Liberal government.
Actually,
so I'm a very typical example of success
it isn't untrue
of immigrants.
It's not untrue, because if my father were to apply for immigration today, he would be rejected. That is a fact. And most of the people who came under my father's generation, they would be rejected because they have skills, they don't have a university degree, they won't have the money to process their application. All these barriers now exist that did not exist at one point. And those barriers have to be removed.
How do you balance, however, the need for more immigrants, or at least the policy that you propose that we accept more immigrants, and at the same time, you've got a situation where young people can't find jobs, where the workforce is in desperate straits. So if you have new immigrants coming to Canada, they're going to need jobs. So what happens then? How do you provide jobs for the young people in Canada currently and the immigrants who come here?
Well, it's been shown that immigration actually encourages innovation. And so people who come here come with a desire to build and to innovate and to invest in the country. My father himself had a shop, and he hired young Canadians to work in the shop, and that's certainly not at minimum wage. That is the tradition of immigrants. It's unfortunate that we have a system like the temporary foreign workers where we undermine our local talent. So we're bringing in people temporarily to fulfill a shortage or a perceived shortage, rather than actually employing Canadians who could provide the jobs. I mean, if a Canadian isn't willing to work at Tim Hortons for $10, perhaps Tim Hortons or McDonald's needs to raise their wage and encourage more people to come and work at a living wage, rather than bringing in temporary foreign workers from outside of the country.
Geng, how do you provide jobs for immigrants as well as Canadian youth?
We welcome refugees, addressing to your question, refugees. But of course, at the same time, we have to pay attention to our young generation and our own workforce in Canada. So this is why the Liberal Party will take a balanced approach. We have our own limit as well. But the immigration or immigrants or refugees are coming to Canada with a dream, and they come to build Canada. They will love this country. They are the positive part of our country. I'll give you one example. The former Governor General, Adrienne Clarkson. She came from Hong Kong as a refugee, and she's a very, very good example, successful example of a refugee, and they made big contributions to our country.
Let's talk about the justice system. There is the proposal that life is life. When someone commits a brutal crime, currently the life sentence is up to 25 years with no chance of parole. But the proposal is that you should spend the rest of your life in prison if you are convicted of a brutal crime. Where do you stand on that?
Well, in terms of the criminal justice system, we have to look at why we put people in prison, first of all. The goal is not only to punish someone, but to also rehabilitate them. Now, in the case of a brutal crime, it is likely that rehabilitation may not work. And we have a parole system that will evaluate an individual and determine whether they are able to come out into society without reoffending. I believe that that system works currently, and that we don't need to legislate locking people up and not give them the opportunity to rehabilitate themselves and to eventually one day become productive members of society. Security is important, but so is our hope that people can be rehabilitated.
Okay, the Conservative government just want to build more jails, but the Liberal Party is taking a different way. And this is why we want to build more, create more jobs, so the people will get more chance to go to the job market. They are gonna have a stable life. So the society will be much safer.
Currently, there is a minimum sentence. If you commit a crime using a firearm, you are automatically sentenced to 5 years in prison, but that is often bargained away by lawyers. Should that be an absolute mandatory term? If someone commits a crime, should they automatically serve that 5 years and not have that issue bargained away, in addition to whatever punishment they are given?
Well, I mean, we have judges. We pay them through a significant amount of money. They're very competent at what they do. Why do we need to legislate how they serve a sentence, how an individual serves a sentence? Each case is different. Each case has to be evaluated, and a judge can make the determination as to what is an appropriate sentence. So I don't believe in minimum sentencing. I think that the courts just recently have ruled that they are unconstitutional. So I don't believe that we need to engage in that line of legislation.
Geng?
Yeah, we don't believe with this minimum sentence. We don't believe with that term because this is decided by the justice system.
Marijuana, yes or no to legalization?
I think that the New Democratic Party is in favor of decriminalizing it. We don't want it to be sold, but at the same time, I don't think law enforcement should be involved in pursuing people who have small amounts of marijuana. It's widely used. We're not going to stop it from being used. May as well just decriminalize it and not put people behind bars because of small amounts.
So what's the difference between decriminalization and legalization?
Well, legalization, you'd have the case in Denver where you've got now marijuana shops and selling these things and people smoking up.
Good way to get some revenue, no?
Well, I mean, if you need revenue, get revenue where you need it, all right? I don't think you should encourage people to start smoking and to start using drugs, making it easier for them. It's been shown that, for example, tobacco is a very bad source of income. We don't want people to use cigarettes, even though it's a very lucrative revenue generator, but it's not in our interests.
Okay.
Yeah, quite some people use marijuana, especially some teenagers. So this right now is a very urgent social issue right now. And any responsible government should address this issue right away. On the current government, they don't do anything. They just keep what they pretend that it's not there. So there must be a way to solve the problem. And our approach is that legalization. So we want to control the use of marijuana from beginning, from the planting, from transportation, from selling, from the use. And we restrict the use of marijuana by young people.
I've got to hold you there because we've now come to the final portion of the program. It's time now to move on to the closing statements. This will be done in reverse order of the opening statements, so Geng, you will be first.
Sure. This is our time. Now, our time for real change, our time for real hope, our time for real renewal, and our time to reclaim our Canada. And our time bringing hope and fairness, and our time to working together to build something that's greater than any one of us. And that something is what we call Canada. So October 19th, it's the right time to bring real change. Thank you.
A number of parties are telling us that in order to grow our economy, you have to sacrifice the environment, that we can only be safe by eroding our personal rights and freedoms, that tax cuts are the only solution to our economic problems. Thomas Mulcair and the NDP party believe that these are false choices. We will protect the environment while still growing our economy and making strategic investments in different areas of our economy. We will repeal Bill C-51 and restore your individual rights and freedoms. And we will invest in our social services and programs that will unify the country, just like the healthcare system did in the past. On October 19th, vote for the party that is committed to you. Vote for me, Akil Sadikali, the NDP candidate for Don Valley North.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us on the local campaign. Airtimes for the debates can be found on rogerstv.com. I'm Gord Martineau. Bye for now.